Arlette, and today we're going to be talking about the heroin chic era. But before I get into that, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what came in before. So when you think of the 80s, what comes to mind? For me, it's extra. Big hair, bold colors, fun workout outfits, and just a carefree vibe that honestly makes me wish I was born during this time. The fashion was vibrant, bold, and unapologetic. In the 80s, the body trend was the inverted triangle. Think tall, athletic figures with broad shoulders, a defined waist, and narrow hips. Models like Ella McPherson and Cindy Crawford totally embodied this look. It was about strength, that sporty vibe, and yeah, being thin. But then the 90s came and everything shifted. So what changed? Well, one of the biggest factors was heroin use during that time, which really influenced how people viewed beauty. By the 90s, things got a little darker. Now, when you think of the 90s, you probably picture a whole different vibe. There was this whole debate about whether people were glamorizing drugs. Movies like Pulp Fiction and Trainspotting definitely made drug use a central theme. Some say it was glamorized, while others say it just depicted the reality of the time, but either way, drugs were in and heroin was no exception. Heroin use spiked partly because it became more cheaper and more pure. The New York Times even called heroin one of Seattle's 3 principal drugs in 1992, and by 1996, the grunge scene had basically become synonymous with heroin. Oh my god, I absolutely adore the grunge scene. I wish I was there. Everything about it was so cool, and the music just really made you feel something, you know what I mean? It was this rebellious, anti-mainstream movement led by bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains. But with that music came a darker side, addiction. And this didn't just stay in the music scene, it also trickled down to fashion. Enter the heroin chic look. This aesthetic was directly influenced by the heroin epidemic. Models were styled to look gaunt, pale, and almost sickly, like the physical effects of the drug. But it wasn't just about looking fragile. It was part of the whole grunge, messy, anti-glamour vibe that was everywhere. Kate Moss became the face of this look, with her wave-like figure and cool girl attitude. But heroin chic was super controversial. A lot of people criticized it for glamorizing addiction and pushing unhealthy beauty standards. So heroin chic wasn't just a shift in body image. It was part of a bigger cultural moment that combined the rise of heroin with the grunge movement. It reflected the anti-establishment vibe of that time, but also highlighted some of the darker realities of that era. Now here's what I find really interesting. Gia Hadid, who wasn't even alive during the time that heroin chic era became a thing, unknowingly started this trend. Some say she was the first supermodel, but when I look it up, I get like 5 other girls, so we're just gonna say she was among one of the first supermodels. They actually made a movie about her life called Gia, starring Angelina Jolie. Honestly, I really recommend it. I feel like it just gives us a glimpse into her life and what it was like to struggle with something like addiction and also being in the fashion industry. It's based on her journals and interviews of people who knew her. Some say that the movie captures her life pretty well, but then there's others that say it didn't really show as good of a job the real struggles that she had. At the same time, you can't really get that much since it is like a 2-hour movie. I feel like a series would do it more justice. I used to think that Janice Dickinson was the first supermodel just because when I was younger, I would watch America's Next Top Model, and she was one of the judges of the show, and she would always be introduced as, America's first supermodel. What I find really interesting though is Janice herself has a story about Gia that I found pretty wild.
Gia Hadid was the ultimate model. I met Gia backstage at an Avedon shoot for Gianni Versace. She had brought along a switchblade and put it on the counter where the makeup was, and I thought that was odd. So she was just looking at me with the switchblade and like kind of looked like it was a threat, and I was nervous, of course, but I told her, put that thing away, otherwise I may just turn and grab it from you and stab you instead. We became friends after that. I don't know how, but we did. We bonded over the switchblade. So that was kind of a momentous moment in the history of Gia for me. She was not a mess the way people make her out to be. I wrote the movie Gia along with Jay McInerney, which made Angelina Jolie a Golden Globe winner. Many sides of Gia that attached to her legendary persona. She was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous, Sophia Loren quality. She was a funny girl, quirky, eccentric, dressed like a punk rocker. She liked John Mellencamp as a musician. She liked the Sex Pistols. She was girlfriends with Sandy Lintner, this makeup artist that I knew. They were a couple for a long time. They lived together. And so, I have a million stories about her. So you asked the right question to the right person, and I've answered. Thank you.
Gia had this androgynous look and olive complexion that stood out against the more typical blonde, blue-eyed models of the time. Francesco Scavulo, a famous photographer, described her as a beautiful punk, a butch pinup girl. She was the it girl and she was everywhere. Anyone who is anyone wanted to work with Gia. She was photographed for Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Harper's Bazaar, you name it. She worked with top brands like Armani, Dior, Versace, and Saint Laurent. She was just that girl. Even though Gia wasn't technically part of the heroin chic era, she embodied what it was before it became a trend. Her personal struggles with addiction started affecting her career. She'd have outbursts, walk off shoots to score drugs, or even fall asleep in front of the camera. Scavulo once remembered a shoot in the Caribbean where Gia was in tears because she couldn't find her heroin. He had to help her calm down enough to fall asleep. There's two interviews that I kind of want to briefly talk about. There was an interview that Gia did where she basically says that she's clean, but in the movie it shows that she was lying about it.
At one point you got kind of into the drug scene, didn't you?
Yes, you could say that I did. It kind of creeps up on you and catches you in a world that's, none that anyone will ever know except someone that has been there.
You're free of it, aren't you now?
Oh, yes, I am definitely. I wouldn't be here right now talking to you if I wasn't, I don't think.
Are you happy with your success?
Yes, I am. I am.
You hesitated.
Well, I just wanted to think about it. No, I am happy with it.
And then there's this other interview where some say that she was just having trouble with the side effects of becoming clean, and then others were saying that she was like strung out on heroin.
I'm going to school for cinematography, and I plan to make a big splash in film someday with my films as a cinematographer. My favorite cinematographer is Vittorio Storello is his name? What is his name? Storero. Vittorio Storero. He made Reds, and he made, what else did he make? He works a lot with Bertolucci, but I know you want to get down to business, so. No, I'm just a little bit crazy because Jeff here has been telling me that I shake too much, that my nerves are bad, but that's just because I still haven't finished my growing pains, but as soon as I do, I'll be fine. And then I'm going to take it on the road and show all you motherfuckers what I can do, but until then,
By one of her final shoots for American Vogue, she had visible needle marks on her arm from heroin use. They airbrushed the photos, but some of those marks still showed through in the November 1980 issue. Sadly, Gia passed away at the age of 26 of AIDS. Photographers like Terry Richardson, David Sims, Hedy Slimane, and the Sorrenti brothers all embraced the heroin chic look in their work. I wanted to focus on one photographer in particular, David Sorrenti. He was known to take pictures of very grungy, thin-looking models. I went through a lot of his work, and he had tons of pictures of Jamie King, who was his girlfriend at the time. The sad part is that both of them were struggling with substance abuse. You can clearly tell in a lot of his photos that the models, including Jamie, weren't in the best health. One thing to note though, just because he was such a big part of the movement, that doesn't mean that's what he was all about. His photography was genuinely beautiful. Quick fact, when I looked through his photos, I noticed he looked super young. Apparently David lived in Naples before moving to New York because he needed regular blood transfusions for, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, thalassemia, a hereditary form of anemia. The condition made him look several years younger than he actually was. At first, his family said that he died of a mysterious illness, but then later it came out that he died of a heroin overdose. After he died, his mom spread awareness of heroin and the awful side effects that it could cause on someone. And some say with David Sorrenti's death also came the death of heroin chic, but then I see others say that the trend was already fading. Either way, heroin chic was no longer, and I just really hope it doesn't happen again. I don't foresee heroin chic coming back, but now it's all about Ozempic, and it's just a different form of, I don't know, would you call it substance abuse? Just really sad to see it unfold. Regardless, it is what it is, right? Like, we can't really do anything about it. We can only talk about it and kind of spread awareness. Anyways, I'm sweating in this. Who told me to wear a turtleneck? I have no idea why I wore this. 5 minutes into the video, I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be tough. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. I love you guys so so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!